Natasha's quarters, around 7 p.m., Natasha had just finished drying her hair, barefoot in a black tank top and joggers, scrolling through combat training schedules on her tablet while sipping tea. She was standing before her work desk, the door opened with a soft hiss. Before she could turn to see who it was, two strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind, pulling her gently back against a familiar chest. "Hey," Tony whispered into her ear, his voice low, a little breathless from the day's chaos. Natasha blinked, surprised for a second. He hadn't messaged. No call. No ping. Just showed up, smelling faintly of ozone and machine oil. She leaned her head slightly, a faint smile playing at her lips. "Shouldn't you be elbow-deep in weapon diagnostics or doing zero-G backflips in a mech?" "Did that," he murmured, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Calibrated, retested, exploded once, almost drowned, and now I need a break." He gently turned her around in his arms until they were face to face. His eyes were tired but warm, that rare version of him she saw when the mask slipped just enough to let her in. She raised an eyebrow, both hands still resting lightly on his chest. "So? What's up?" Tony kissed her. Not rushed. Not playful. Just a slow press of lips that said "I missed you," even if he wouldn't admit it out loud. Then, still close, he said, "Dinner. You, me. Off base." Natasha blinked again. "Dinner?" "New York," he added casually, like he was suggesting ordering takeout. "I made a reservation." "You made a reservation?" she echoed, now fully stunned. "I know." "Terrifying," Tony smirked. "Took me 15 seconds. I even called myself a name in the notes. Do not seat this man near candles. Real classy." She stared at him for a second, caught somewhere between suspicious and touched. "You're serious?" "I want one evening where we don't talk about adamantium, space radiation, mutant genetics, or warlords. Just you. Me. Real food. Wine. Something resembling normal." Natasha's expression softened. Slowly, she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him again, this time deeper, with that slow burn that always knocked the wind out of him. "You're full of surprises today," she whispered before biting his lower lip softly. Tony leaned his forehead against hers. "I'm full of a lot of things. But right now, I'm full of one idea: dinner, you, skyline view, maybe some soft jazz if you're into that kind of torture." She pulled back just enough to give him a teasing look. "You clean up nice, Stark." Tony grinned. "I'll even comb my hair." "That's commitment," she said as she moved her head close to his neck and took a sniff before kissing. "You need to take a nice bath." She pulled back a little and looked at his usual jacket with a hoodie, "and wear something blue. It looks good on you. Makes you sexy." She winked. Tony's quarters. Steam rolled along the ceiling of Tony's bathroom as he stepped out of the shower, hair damp, towel slung low on his hips. His muscles ached pleasantly from mech training and lab work. Still, the second he'd felt Natasha's kiss earlier, his brain had switched gears completely. Dinner. A real one. He walked to the sink, wiped steam off the mirror, and eyed himself. The stubble stayed. Clean shave felt too much like a board meeting. He brushed his teeth, ran a hand through his wet hair, and pulled open the wardrobe he barely touched. The blue suit was still wrapped in plastic. He pulled it out carefully, dark navy. Tailored. Simple but sharp. Natasha had picked the fabric months ago during one of their rare downtime days. At the time, she said nothing, just handed it to him like it was a dare. He hadn't worn it. Not yet. Tonight was the night that he slipped into the pants, adjusted the cuffs, and rolled on the shirt. The jacket came last. Smooth, breathable, stitched with micro-thread armor plating that nobody would ever notice. He adjusted the collar, checked his reflection, and smirked. "Damn." Hermes chimed softly from a ceiling speaker. "Transport is ready. Coordinates set. ETA 23 minutes to location." Tony tapped the comm, notify Natasha. Tell her not to be late. I hate waiting. Even when she's worth it. Hermes responded. Message sent. She replied with, try not to crash the car before I look hot. Tony grinned as he opened his watch collection and put on one with a blue crystal theme. And as usual, it contains nanites. After that, he walked out, the hallway lights responding to his steps. The elevator doors parted, and the platform lowered in silence, bringing him down to the landing pad. His ride awaited, a low-profile Stark flyer, midnight black, shaped like a luxury coupe but silent as a whisper. Fully cloaked, untraceable, and outrageously over-engineered for a dinner date, Natasha's room. Natasha stood in front of the full-length mirror, zipping up the back of her dress. Black, thigh-high slit, off-shoulder neckline. Elegant but unpretentious. Practical where it counted. Her hair was pulled into a low knot, clean and minimal, a few loose strands framing her face. Her lipstick was deep wine. Her heels were discreet but sharp enough to be a weapon if needed. She checked her nanite bracelet, then grabbed her purse, and turned once in the mirror. She didn't usually dress up. But for this, yeah, she'd make an exception. Elena's voice came through the room speaker. Your transport is waiting. And I must say, red on black. Bold choice. Natasha smirked. Eyes off, Elena. Don't worry, the AI replied. I'm more interested in how many jaw drops you'll cause tonight. She walked out without another word. Hangar Bay. Tony glanced at the time and smiled to himself. 2 minutes early. That's gotta break some universal law. Then the doors at the far end of the hangar opened, she stepped in, and for a split second, Tony forgot how to breathe. His brain stalled. Natasha walked slowly, heels tapping with precise rhythm, the hem of her dress sweeping just above her thigh. The black hugged her like it was sewn onto her soul, off-shoulder, slid up the side, elegance laced with danger. Her walk was confident, unrushed, like she owned every step. Tony's heart thudded harder, tripping over itself. When she finally did glance his way, something in her eyes, cool, sure, and faintly amused, hit him square in the chest. His breath caught. The dress, the hair, the lipstick. God, the lipstick. Damn. He muttered under his breath, louder than he meant to. Natasha stopped just a few feet from him. Is that the part where you say something witty? Or are you still rebooting? Tony blinked, then let out a short laugh, eyes roaming once, respectfully, but thoroughly. You look. I mean, you already know, but, I do. She smirked. But go on. I like hearing it. You look dangerous, sexy, hot, breathless, he said softly. And I'm kinda having a harder time controlling myself from hugging you and kissing you. She stepped in closer, looking up at him. You clean up nice. Tony leaned slightly, voice low. You make that dress illegal. Natasha slid a hand along his chest, smoothing the lapel. You're lucky I like criminals. He took her hand gently, lifted it, and kissed her knuckles. No smirk this time. Just eyes locked on hers. Serious. Warm. Let's go make New York jealous. She tilted her head, grinning. Lead the way, Mr. Stark. He offered his arm, she took it, and together, they stepped into the flyer, the hatch closing behind them as the engines hummed to life and they flew toward their destination. Location, New York City, the Aurelian, rooftop restaurant, night sky, busy city, cool air. Tony and Natasha sat across from each other on a private balcony terrace, half wrapped in the hush of the evening. The table was tucked away from the rest of the diners, screened by a living wall of ivy and soft ambient light. She swirled the red wine gently in her glass, eyes steady on his. Tony watched her without hiding it. You're staring, she said, lips brushing the rim of her glass. I am. Intentionally. Can't help it when the view clears my mind. She smirked. That's poetic. Did you rehearse that? I ran through 5 lines in my head before landing on that one. Seemed like the least likely to get me kicked under the table. Natasha leaned forward slightly, chin propped on one hand. I'm still deciding. Their first course arrived. Tony barely looked at it. Some fusion appetizer with shaved truffle and a glaze he couldn't pronounce. What mattered was how she looked, biting into it, eyes closing just a second too long like the flavor surprised her. You always eat like that? He asked. Like what? Like the food's passing a test it didn't study for. She raised an eyebrow, playful. You're charming when you're tired. He rested his hand flat on the table between them. She didn't hesitate. Her fingers found his. I need it tonight, he said. I know. No labs. No mechs. No galactic risk reports. Just one dinner with you, and the city breathing below our feet. You're getting sentimental, she said, but the softness in her eyes didn't argue. I'm letting myself feel things. Don't make me regret it. Natasha ran her thumb across his knuckles. Her voice lowered, more serious now. You're allowed to feel. Even if the world keeps asking you to act like you don't. He looked down for a moment, then back at her. You're the only part of this I don't second guess. And you're the only part of this that lets me stop looking over my shoulder. They continued to talk and soon, their mains arrived. Neither touched them right away. There was too much weight in the quiet now, good weight. Familiar. Intimate. After a few bites, Tony reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, flat case. He set it in front of her. What's this? Something I built a while ago. Thought about giving it to you. Couldn't figure out if it was too much. She opened it. Inside was a pendant. Minimalist design, the size of a thumbnail, with a soft blue glow in the center. She opened it, and a soft tune started playing as a tiny holoscreen appeared on top, playing all their past recorded memories. Natasha quickly closed it as soon as it came to the part where Natasha was singing in the garden while feeding the birds. Ha! Her eyes widened as she tried to hold her smile. Oh, yeah. You got a nice voice. Don't try to hide it, he winked. The rest of the dinner moved slowly. No rush. No schedules. They talked about normal things like music she didn't hate, weird food he'd never try again, and what Yelena would think after learning about this dinner date. When dessert came, Natasha pushed her plate away. I'm full. You didn't even try it. She looked at him over the rim of her wine glass. I'm saving room. For what? She stood slowly, walked around the table, and took his hand. Her eyes flicked to the quiet corner of the rooftop lounge behind them. For whatever happens next. The night was calm. City lights flickered in the distance. Natasha held Tony's hand, ready to pull him somewhere more private. Then it happened. A loud explosion shook the ground. The shockwave rattled glasses on nearby tables. Seconds later, a series of sharp gunshots echoed from a few blocks away. People started yelling. Some ducked. Others ran to the edge of the rooftop to look. Tony and Natasha turned at the same time. A figure shot out of a crumbling building's rooftop. A man in a tight blue suit, ice blue lines glowing across his arms and spine. He skated through the air as ice formed beneath his feet. Each swipe of his arm threw jagged blasts of ice at the NYPD officers trying to set up a perimeter. Cops scrambled for cover, shouting over each other as bullets whizzed past. Tony's eyes narrowed. His nanites kicked in instantly, scanning the bag and the guy. Money, he said aloud. Lots of it. That guy mutated his own DNA artificially. A cryogenic human. And his suit is customized with cryotech. That guy looks familiar. As soon as he put pressure on his mind, trying to remember the identity of that man from the comics in his past life, the Mind Stone helped him remember the details. Tony now remembered, Dr. Gregor Shapanka, Ph.D., an employee of Stark Industries, was conducting private research into a means for achieving physical immortality. He attempted to rob the private vault of Anthony Stark, head of industries, in order to obtain microtransistor designs that Shapanka intended to sell to finance further research in his private project. However, Shapanka was unsuccessful in his theft. Captured, he was brought before Stark, who fired him. Short version. You can check the fandom for more info. However, in this reality, there was a twist. Tony never hired him. So, there was no way that Gregor could have made that suit on his own without the technology. Could it be? He ran a quick scan on the Stark Industries employee list, but Gregor's name wasn't there. He then searched his database and found it. Gregor's name was on the list of Hammer Industries employees. With Hammer Industries shut down, that guy must have run out of money, thus doing the classic bank robbery. Natasha didn't hesitate. She looked straight at him. Go, she said. Tony paused for a second, searching her face. She gave a small nod. You sure? He asked. Natasha stepped back with a smirk. We can finish where we left off after you deal with him. While the guests were still watching the scene unfold, Tony slipped away from the crowd and headed toward the upper part of the building. He climbed a short maintenance stairwell and reached the roof. The nanites inside his bloodstream responded instantly. They surged out from his skin pores, covering his body in a smooth wave. Within seconds, the classic red and gold suit formed around him. The helmet clicked into place, eyes glowing soft blue. Hermes, Arctic mode, Tony ordered. Arctic mode activated. The nanites shifted, changing colors to pure white, and the suit was ready to deal with the ice guy. He checked the trail of ice across the skyline. Targets moving north, he muttered. The repulsors in his boots flared to life, and he shot off the rooftop, bursting through the air like a silent missile. He flew low between buildings, scanning ahead. Nobody knew who he was. Some pointed their fingers at him, whispering about the Shadow Legion, and some even started taking pictures. Tony locked eyes on the ice skater ahead. All right, Frosty, he muttered. Let's dance. Tony pushed his thrusters harder, and almost instantly, he zipped past Gregor and stopped before him, aiming his right fist at Gregor. The nanites shifted, forming a sonic cannon. Put down the money and surrender, Gregor, Tony warned. Gregor skidded to a stop mid-air, his boots sliding on a path of ice that curved high above the building. He squinted through his visor at the figure floating in front of him. His breath fogged the inside of his helmet. Who the hell are you supposed to be? Gregor shouted. And how the hell do you know my name? I'm the guy who's going to shut you down, Tony said. Gregor scoffed. You can't stop me. You have no idea what this suit can do. He raised both arms. Twin streams of ice blasted toward Tony like spears. Tony activated the sonic cannon, meeting the attack head-on. The ice hit the sonic wave mid-air. A loud crack echoed through the sky as ice shards exploded in every direction. Tony hovered, stable. Gregor slid backward on his ice path, arms raised again. You sure you want to keep playing? Tony called. Gregor didn't answer. He launched forward, ice flaring from his boots. A frozen ramp formed beneath him, curving high above the city. He jumped off the end of the ramp and came crashing toward Tony like a missile, both hands glowing bright blue with stored cryo energy. Tony spun mid-air, dodging the first punch. Gregor's ice-coated fist missed him by inches. But the second swing clipped Tony's shoulder. Crackk. A layer of frost exploded on contact, locking up part of Tony's right arm. And that was supposed to do what exactly? Tony said. His nanites moved fast. The armor around his arm shifted, melting the frost off with a quick heat pulse. Steam hissed as the ice evaporated. Gregor landed on a nearby rooftop. Ice spread from his boots, covering the roof in seconds. You're fast, he said, panting. But you're not ready for this. He slammed his palm on the ground. A giant spike of ice shot up toward Tony. Tony dropped fast, dodging it, then zipped forward. He landed on the rooftop across from Gregor and formed a new weapon. Hermes, he said, EMP plus sonic cannon combo. The nanites on his left arm reshaped into a wide, short cannon with glowing blue rings. Tony fired, the beam hit the rooftop, right in front of Gregor. Boom. The ice shattered. The glow in Gregor's suit dimmed. What did you do? Gregor asked, stepping back. Shut down your cooling system, Tony said. Gregor growled and raised his hands again. I'm not done. He used his own power since his suit wasn't responding thanks to the EMP and blasted a massive wave of ice, freezing part of the rooftop and sending sharp spikes shooting at Tony. Tony jumped into the air, spun around, and launched 2 repulsor blasts. The ice shattered mid-flight. Gregor followed, skating across a new ice path. He leapt into the air, pulling 2 ice blades from his forearms. He came at Tony fast. Tony blocked the first slash with an energy shield. The second one scraped his helmet. Okay. You got close, Tony said, then he fired a point-blank blast at Gregor's chest. The hit sent Gregor flying across the sky. He crashed into the side of a building, his ice armor cracking. He tried to recover mid-air, but Tony was already there. He grabbed Gregor by his throat and slammed him onto the ground. Gregor groaned, struggling. I won't lose like this. But Tony sent another sonic boom at him. His suit cracked open. Blood came out of his ears and nose. His eyes became bloodshot. Tony flew down. The nanites on his finger formed a needle, and he slammed it into Gregor's neck, injecting the bio-nanites. What are you doing? Gregor spat. Just fixing your customized genetic enhancement. Not to worry, Tony pulled out the needle. The nanites shifted back into his suit. You are now a regular human. No more cryo power. And as for your suit. He pressed his palm on Gregor's chest. The nanites crawled over Gregor's armor, and within 10 seconds, that blue armor was turned to dust. All right, data and DNA, collected. Time to get out of here. Tony was about to fly away when the cops surrounded him, aiming their guns. Don't move, one of the cops warned. He looked like a newbie, trying to act tough in front of his superiors. Really, now? What the hell is wrong with you guys? Pointing guns at the guy who just stopped a robbery and saved your asses? Tony asked. The young cop with a shaky grip shouted again. I said, don't move. Tony sighed inside the helmet. His voice came out through the suit, calm and firm. I'm not the enemy here. The guy who froze your street and almost dropped a building on you? That was him. He pointed to Gregor, who lay on the ground groaning, still too weak to move. The other officers looked at each other, unsure. One of them lowered his weapon slightly. Tony held his hands up slowly, palms facing forward. The repulsors glowed soft blue, but he didn't charge them. I'm not here to fight cops. I stopped the threat. He's neutralized, and his powers are gone. And that gun ain't gonna do much other than make me angry. So, stand down, tough kid. One officer stepped forward cautiously. Older, more experienced. You some kind of government project? SHIELD? CIA? No, Tony replied. Just someone who helps when others can't. You have a name? He smiled under the helmet. I'm Iron Man. The cops exchanged looks. One of them muttered, Iron Man. But the officer in charge held up a hand. Stand down. He's not attacking. And he did just save the city block. Guns lowered, Tony walked toward Gregor. He picked up the duffel bag filled with stolen money and tossed it toward the nearest cop. Return that to the bank. And make sure you put on a better perimeter next time. Then, before anyone could ask more questions, he launched into the air. The thrusters lit up, and he flew high over the buildings, leaving a white trail across the sky.